Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Hey, healthcare human. How often do you feel overcapacity, forgetting basic bodily needs, or feeling disconnected from your passion for healthcare? You're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you. Our system encourages overworking, leading to burnout, mistakes, and drained empathy. But what if you could be the change you need? Imagine a workflow that honors your natural pace, a schedule with space for rest and pleasure, and a life where you get to express your full humanity. I've helped many clinicians create this space, and I'd love to help you in my coaching program, Creating Space. Creating Space is a restorative coaching experience designed specifically for overworked healthcare professionals like you. Join me and an intimate group of fellow healthcare humans on a transformative 7-month journey. Together, you'll learn the tools needed to reclaim your humanity, receive both group and individual support to navigate obstacles, and celebrate your efforts with a luxurious in-person spa retreat at the end. I only run this program once a year from October to April, and it is the only way to work with me privately. I am having so much fun with the current group of healthcare humans in Creating Space that I've decided to open early bird registration for the cohort starting this fall. From March 1st to 31st, you can claim your spot in the group and get the added benefit of access to a 12-month payment plan, as well as a bonus one-on-one coaching session with me anytime between now and when the program starts. These extra bonuses are only available if you register before April. So, if you're ready to take the first step towards a more spacious and satisfying life, go to joanchanmd.com/space and book your call with me. We'll have the chance to connect, get all your questions answered, and start planning how to create space in your life for you. Hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. So today's episode is going to be structured a little differently in that I think majority of the episode is going to be spent with me reading someone else's words. I came across this article about a concept that I'd heard a lot about, but never actually read the original text, which is the idea of spoon theory. Have you ever heard of the spoon theory? I've heard of it from a few different places and just seeing different memes and references to it online. But I got to know the spoon theory on a whole other level as a piece of the work I've been doing with the Ontario College of Family Physicians. I have had the deep, deep privilege of being one of 2 co-facilitators of a peer support group that's been running this entire past year of family physicians who live with chronic illness and disability. I'm not going to say any more about what happens in those groups because it's private and confidential, but it is public knowledge that I'm one of the co-facilitators. And in fact, we're going to be onboarding a new group to start in April. Co-facilitator lives with chronic illness and disability, and I'm there as an ally. And I feel like I have learned so much from this group, and am really just honored to be able to support them and have them facilitate a space where they can connect and support each other as well. And one of the things that I've learned from this group is a little bit more about the spoon theory. It is comes from illness and disability advocacy spaces and is often talked about in those circles. And I'm not going to really explain it. I'm going to let the article explain it. So the article is the original article where this term originated from, I believe. Back in 2003, an American writer, Christine Miserandino, who lives with lupus, and she wrote this article back then to describe what it was like to live with a chronic illness and chronic disability. And especially for her, one that is quite invisible. The name of her website is butyoudontlooksick.com. And I just think how often that's an experience. Just a couple things I wanted to say before I share the article to invite you to consider how you're hearing the article and reflecting on it for yourself. First of all, you may be a healthcare human who has something going on with you in your body that impacts your health, impacts your function in some way. So I hope you're seeing, even just in me naming that to you, and naming the fact that there are many humans who work in healthcare that over the course of their lives have had differing levels of ability due to illness in their body or injury in their body. And sometimes that's transient, sometimes that's chronic, sometimes that's permanent, right? And one of the most oppressive, inhuman, horrific, horrible features of our healthcare system is that our system does not operate as if that's true at all. Our system demands maximum productivity from us and punishes in so many ways if someone does not give more than their capacity. So a human who does not live with chronic illness is often induced to work beyond their capacity, right? Like, which is, I talk about that all the time on this podcast. And now, you'll have heard on past episodes where I've spoken to folks in healthcare who live with chronic illness or disability, and their interactions with the healthcare system and how much more limiting those experiences have been for them. And it's not simply about their body's limitations, but it's really the system's limitations, short-sightedness, ableism, frankly, that like tripled down on the level of shame and lack of support and harm that comes with a system telling you that you can't work here anymore because you don't have this ability, or you can't work full time, or you can't be compensated in a way that allows you to have a sustainable living. I've heard so many painful stories, both outside of and inside of this OCFP group, of how people are treated if they've gone from a state of higher level of function and productivity, if you will, to a lesser. I don't mean lower, but it's almost like you're treated like a lower level of a person, right? And I think that's something I want to make sure that I'm naming, and, using this podcast to advocate for change, please. And certainly I'm on my own journey of being thoughtful of how I support folks who work for me and colleagues when they go through periods of either transient or permanent disability. And beyond that, I think one of the most powerful ideas that I've heard in relationship with ableism is the notion that all humans are temporarily able-bodied. So for family physicians, it's like, well, a family physician should be able to see this many patients per day, and then they should be able to make a good income on that. Like, there's so many assumptions baked into that don't leave space for varying levels of capacity, varying levels of ability, capability, energy level, etc. There's something very inhuman and ableist about even just like the notion of such a formula, and there's something about, even if you are listening to this and, like myself, do not currently have a disabling condition, living life in a human body means our body's ability will absolutely evolve over time. And I'm deeply aware of that myself. It's one of many, many reasons why I truly believe that living below your maximum capacity, working below your maximum capacity, leaving space, creating that space, that surge capacity, and that space just for you to live and be rested, it's not only great for all the reasons I've named before, but also understanding there may be periods of time where your capacity is cut in half, or cut in even lower than that, right? Where your capacity completely changes because of a medical condition that you may develop, right? A very transient version of that is the fact that now that my schedule has space and for flexibility, when I am sick, so when I am temporarily less abled because I have the flu or whatever, I have space to shift at least some of those patients around. I have space and coverage to help support me when I'm feeling sick, and I offer that to those I work with in turn, right? So the reason I'm sharing this article is like multiple fold. So one is to introduce you to the idea of spoon theory, because it's another way of thinking of capacity. I think it's a very powerful analogy that I'd invite you then to consider for your own life. Also to advocate and remind people that healthcare humans can live with disability and illness, and it might be invisible and you might not realize it. So you're impatient with your staff member, but maybe it's about their capacity and medical illness, and that's why they're struggling to perform, right? Like, so just like an advocacy piece as well. So yeah, I wanted to share it for all those reasons. One thing I'll name is in this article, there's times where Christine is saying like, when you're healthy, you have unlimited spoons, and especially when you're young. And another point she says, like, when you're healthy, you think you have unlimited spoons. And I would just say, my personal view is that no one has unlimited spoons. You'll understand when I read it, but no one has unlimited spoons. Everyone has limits. Do some people have capacity and some amount of endurance and just the sheer force of will to blast past their spoon limit for a long time before they start to feel the ill effects? For sure. But no one has unlimited spoons. And I don't say that as a critique of her article. I totally understand what she's saying. And certainly in contrast to someone living with chronic disabling illness, the number of spoons and the expectation of spoon spending is outsized for someone living with a disability, and people may not perceive that, and they may be impatient with them or frustrated or not understand. And so that's the purpose of the spoon theory. I think it's a powerful analogy that so often this happens. So someone will speak from their experience as a marginalized group in some way, and that insight will actually ring true for all of humanity if we are wise enough to listen. And so that's why I want to offer this article to you. So I'm going to read the article, and then I'll probably offer you a reflection question, and that's going to be the episode. So I hope you enjoy. I think this is a really well-written, beautiful article, and I hope that you really sink yourself into where you've seen some of these false expectations of unlimited spoons showing up in your own life, and how you could see yourself using this theory to at least explain to yourself the concepts of pacing and limits and capacity, as well as potentially understand someone better or offer it to someone else to have yourself explained better. So with that, here is the article. I believe it's called Spoon Theory by Christine Miserandino. My best friend and I were in the diner talking. As usual, it was very late and we were eating French fries with gravy. Like normal girls our age, we spent a lot of time in the diner while in college, and most of the time we spent talking about boys, music, or trivial things that seemed very important at the time. We never got serious about anything in particular and spent most of our time laughing. As I went to take some of my medicine with a snack as I usually did, she watched me with an awkward kind of stare instead of continuing the conversation. She then asked me out of the blue what it felt like to have lupus and be sick. I was shocked, not only because she asked me the random question, but also because I assumed she knew all there was to know about lupus. She came to doctors with me. She saw me walk with a cane and throw up in the bathroom. She had seen me cry in pain. What else was there to know? I started to ramble on about pills and aches and pains, but she kept pursuing and didn't seem satisfied with my answers. I was a little surprised, as being my roommate in college and friend for years, I thought she already knew the medical definition of lupus. Then she looked at me with a face every sick person knows well, the face of pure curiosity about something no one healthy can truly understand. She asked what it felt like, not physically, but what it felt like to be me, to be sick. As I tried to gain my composure, I glanced around the table for help or guidance, or at least stall for time to think. I was trying to find the right words. How do I answer a question I was never able to answer for myself? How do I explain every detail of every day being affected and give the emotions a sick person goes through with clarity? I could have given up, cracked a joke like I usually do, and changed the subject. But I remember thinking, if I don't try to explain this, how could I ever expect her to understand? If I can't explain this to my best friend, how could I explain my world to anyone else? I had to at least try. At that moment, the spoon theory was born. I quickly grabbed every spoon on the table. Hell, I grabbed spoons off the other tables. I looked at her in the eyes and said, "Here you go. You have lupus." She looked at me slightly confused, as anyone would when they were handed a bouquet of spoons. The cold metal spoons clanked in my hands as I grouped them together and shoved them into her hands. I explained that the difference in being sick and being healthy is having to make choices or to consciously think about things when the rest of the world doesn't have to. The healthy have the luxury of a life without choices, a gift most people take for granted. Most people start the day with unlimited amount of possibilities and energy to do whatever they desire, especially young people. For the most part, they do not need to worry about the effects of their actions. So for my explanation, I use spoons to convey this point. I wanted something for her to actually hold, for me to then take away, since most people who get sick feel a loss of a life they once knew. If I was in control of taking away the spoons, then she would know that what it feels like to have someone or something else, in this case lupus, be in control. I asked her to count her spoons. She asked why, and I explained that when you are healthy, you expect to have a never-ending supply of spoons. But when you have to now plan your day, you need to know exactly how many spoons you are starting with. It doesn't guarantee that you might not lose some along the way, but at least helps to know where you're starting. She counted out 12 spoons. She laughed and said she wanted more. I said no, and I knew right away that this little game would work when she looked disappointed and we hadn't even started yet. I've wanted more spoons for years and haven't found a way yet to get more. Why should she? I also told her to always be conscious of how many she had and not to drop them because she can never forget she has lupus. I asked her to list off the tasks of her day, including the most simple. As she rattled off daily chores or just fun things to do, I explained how each one would cost her a spoon. When she jumped right into getting ready for work as her first task of the morning, I cut her off and took away a spoon. I practically jumped down her throat. I said, "No, you don't just get up. You have to crack open your eyes and then realize you are late. You didn't sleep well the night before. You have to crawl out of bed and then have to make yourself something to eat before you can do anything else. Because if you don't, you can't take your medicine. And if you don't take your medicine, you might as well give up all your spoons for today and tomorrow too." I quickly took away a spoon and she realized she hasn't even gotten dressed yet. Showering cost her a spoon, just for washing her hair and shaving her legs. Reaching high and low that early in the morning could actually cost more than one spoon, but I figured I'd give her a break. I didn't want to scare her right away. Getting dressed was worth another spoon. I stopped her and broke down every task to show her how every little detail needs to be thought about. You cannot simply just throw clothes on when you are sick. I explained that I have to see what clothes I can physically put on. If my hands hurt that day, buttons are out of the question. If I have bruises that day, I need to wear long sleeves. And if I have a fever, I need a sweater to stay warm, and so on. If my hair is falling out, I need to spend more time to look presentable, and then you can factor in another 5 minutes of feeling badly that it took 2 hours to do all of this. I think she was starting to understand when she theoretically didn't even get to work and she was left with 6 spoons. I then explained to her that she needed to choose the rest of her day wisely, since when your spoons are gone, they're gone. Sometimes you can borrow against tomorrow's spoons, but just think about how hard tomorrow will be with less spoons. I also needed to explain that a person who is sick always lives with the looming thought that tomorrow may be the day that a cold comes, or an infection, or any number of things that could be very dangerous. So you do not want to run low on spoons because you never know that when you will truly need them. I didn't want to depress her, but I needed to be realistic, and unfortunately, being prepared for the worst is part of a real day for me. We went through the rest of the day, and she slowly learned that skipping lunch would cost her a spoon, as well as standing on a train or even typing at her computer too long. She was forced to make errands and think about things differently. Hypothetically, she had to choose not to run errands so that she could eat dinner that night. When we got to the end of her pretend day, she said she was hungry. I summarized that she had to eat dinner, but she only had 1 spoon left. If she cooked, she wouldn't have enough energy to clean the pots. If she went out for dinner, she might be too tired to drive home safely. Then I also explained that I didn't even bother to add into this game that she was so nauseous that cooking was probably out of the question anyway. So she decided to make soup. It was easy. I then said it was only 7 p.m. You have the rest of the night, but maybe end up with one spoon. So you can do something fun or clean your apartment or do chores, but you can't do it all. I rarely see her emotional, so when I saw her upset, I knew maybe I was getting through to her. I didn't want my friend to be upset, but at the same time, I was happy to think finally maybe someone understood me a little bit. She had tears in her eyes and said quietly, "Christine, how do you do it? Do you really do this every day?" I explained that some days were worse than others. Some days I have more spoons than most. But I can never make it go away, and I can't forget about it. I always have to think about it. I handed her a spoon I had been holding in reserve. I said simply, "I have learned to live life with an extra spoon in my pocket, in reserve. You need to always be prepared." It's hard. The hardest thing I have ever had to learn to do is slow down and not do everything. I fight this to this day. I hate feeling left out, having to choose to stay home or to not get things done that I want to do. I wanted her to feel that frustration. I wanted her to understand that everything everyone else does comes so easy, but for me, it is 100 little jobs in one. I need to think about the weather, my temperature that day, and the whole day's plans before I can attack any one given thing. When other people can simply do things, I have to attack it and make a plan like I'm strategizing a war. It is in that lifestyle, the difference between being sick and healthy. It is the beautiful ability to not think and just do. I miss that freedom. I miss never having to count spoons. After we were emotional and talked about this for a little while longer, I sensed she was sad. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe she realized that she never could truly and honestly say she understands. But at least she now might not complain it so much when I can't go out for dinner some nights, or when I never seem to make it to her house and she always has to drive to mine. I gave her a hug when we walked out of the diner. I had the one spoon in my hand and I said, "Don't worry, I see this as a blessing. I have been forced to think about everything I do. Do you know how many spoons people waste every day? I don't have room for wasted time or wasted spoon, and I chose to spend this time with you." Ever since this night, I have used the spoon theory to explain my life to many people. In fact, my family and friends refer to spoons all the time. It has become a code word. It has become a code word for what I can and cannot do. Once people understand the spoon theory, they seem to understand me better. But I also think they live their life a little differently too. I think it isn't just good for understanding lupus, but anyone dealing with any disability or illness. Hopefully, they don't take so much for granted or their life in general. I give a piece of myself in every sense of the word when I do anything. It has become an inside joke. I have become famous for saying to people jokingly that they should feel special when I spend time with them because they have one of my spoons. And again, that was written by Christine Miserandino, and you can look her up at butyoudon'tlooksick.com. So that's what I wanted to share. I thought that that article was really powerful. Her personal story of her way of describing her disability. It definitely affected me to read it. Even just knowing the concept of spoon theory, and though I have the privilege of not applying it to my life in the same way because I do not currently live with chronic disability, I agree with what she said at the end, where thinking in spoons has really helped me to understand my own capacity, as well as to have sort of grace and understanding for other people's capacity as well. Something I see a lot in healthcare is impatience with each other when they can't pick up the slack. And I think let's just assume that healthcare doesn't have enough spoons collectively because there's not enough people for whom the spoons would be held by anyway. So there's no slack to pick up. And so can we have grace, understanding? We're not going to get it all done. People will be left without care. They already are. And how can we honor our own spoons and each other's? Because that's what is realistic. That is what is honoring each person's humanity. And how will that help us if we hold on to at least one spoon for ourselves each? That's that creating space concept said in a different way for me. How can that help us to create a sustainable and even enjoyable, powerful, effective way to offer the care we can? So that's my reflection for you. How many spoons do you think you have today? Have you ever heard of this concept before? And what would happen if you started to honor the amount of spoons your body offers you each day and save one, at least one, for you each day? That's all I have for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.